All right, good evening, race fans. Welcome back to another exciting evening of Sunday Night Skippy Racing action. We are here at virtual Watkins Glen, one of my favorite tracks, and I'm joined tonight by Peter Lee in the booth. How are you doing, Peter?
I'm doing great, Chris. Glad to be here
for the last-minute addition there, by the way. I really appreciate you being here. Your insight is going to be super helpful and useful as we look at what based on the Discord conversation, appears to be what I'm calling the Talladega of the Sunday Night Skippy season.
Well, I'm sure that's something that, being the NASCAR fan that you are, that makes you even more excited for tonight.
Exactly. Yeah, not a lot of people excited about the, let's say, the dominance of the draft. I think a lot of people prefer the technicalities of a racing line and stuff like that. But for the viewers, I don't know that there's going to be much that's more exciting than drivers counting on the draft and trying to basically play chess with how do I put myself in a position to win at the end of the race when all things being equal, I can, maintain contact with the car in front of me because this car just punches a huge hole in the air.
Oh, and the other thing about this race is, just like at Interlagos last week, fuel strategy, I think, could be huge here because we have the same fuel restrictions. And so will people be doing this in 2 stops, 3 stops? Will the draft help? I think we could end up with another kind of crazy finish like we did last week at Interlagos.
Well, if it's anything even close to Interlagos last week, we will be lucky indeed. We are looking at a 12-car grid right now is what I'm showing, and we're finishing up the open qualifying session with Matthew Shepka. And as I was doing that, I meant to transition smoothly to the race information there. I did not. But there you go. You can see the checkered flag on the session. Matthew Shepka currently in the lead, not by a ton. Great grouping of timing there, not as close as what we're typically used to seeing, but at the same time, like we talked about, with the draft playing such a large role in tonight's race, I don't anticipate that spread being quite as impactful as some other places where the technical timing line may be a little bit more of a factor.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Chris, because this is a track and this will be a race where I think strategy means everything, and who you stick with for a draft partner, making sure you don't end up off all by yourself on the track without a draft partner. All of those things are going to factor a lot more than your outright speed.
Which, as a oval driver, as you mentioned, that excites me because that is exactly the type of strategy that you have to do at these at the restrictor plate type tracks. Your fuel strategy is not only your own fuel strategy, but how do you line that up maybe with somebody else? And, if you pick wrong and you're out there by your lonesome, who the heck knows? You basically ostracize yourself not ostracize yourself, but you've separated yourself in not a great way.
Well, early in the race, fighting and battling, dicing with folks is generally a bad thing at this track. You want to work with whoever you're near, try to create some separation to the people behind you, try to catch up to the people ahead. And then, the last 2, maybe 3 laps, that's when you fight. That's when you try to really get past whoever you've been buddies with and try to kill them. And that's really
when do you wait for the kill shot, right? That's the that's the important piece. Because to your point, you're gonna have to find a buddy, if you will, or 2 or 3, and at some point though, the gloves come off and you do have to finish where you finish. We are done gridding and we are ready to go racing here at Watkins Glen. Matthew Shepard going to take us to the entry of turn 1 with Oliver Hartley joining him on the Michael McLeod. What happened there?
Yeah, there's been, looks like another issue possibly with Oliver Hartley's start, just like in Interlagos, some sort of maybe technical issue right off the starting line.
Well, Michael McLeod,
And,
either way here,
yep.
he is way out there, although not by enough, I think, to make much of a difference. These cars are going to be tracking him down here shortly.
And Matthew Shepka is dropped all the way from pole down to fifth, or down to sixth, actually, from that start.
Not the start I'm sure he was hoping for, although to our previous point, I think that long race, we've still got 34 minutes remaining, and we see everybody kind of shuffling in. Joe Zubovic is going to get loose, though.
And it looks like Oliver might have made contact. It'll be interesting to see if he sustained any damage for both of those folks.
So Joe running in second place at the time is going to kind of stack up the field. That's going to give Michael McLeod a I guess approaching 3-second gap here on everybody else. So that's going to leave Jake Ashe, Rusty Pontenberg out there on their own. Matthew Shepka into pit road. So I'm curious if this is a fuel strategy play or if he sustained damage on that start. I don't see anything immediately wrong with his car as he passes down past the camera here.
I was going to say it was great to see Matthew on pole. He's a newcomer to the league, and he's on the waiting list to get into the SF1, and this is his first outing in SF2, and it was really great to see him on his first time out with us getting onto pole.
Well, Rusty and Jake not really working together, although Jake is going to funnel in behind. Nick Tullo and Dan Pagowski also battling here early. So all of that talk we did about partnering up and working together to get up front.
Look at Daniel Pagowski all the way up, up 8 places, up to 4th.
Taking advantage of those early incidents, Dan Pagowski, and to your point, he's sitting in P4 right now in a fantastic position. They've got 4, though, almost 5 seconds up to Jake Ashe and Rusty for that podium spot. So let's see if Nick Tullo kind of settles in behind Dan and works with him to get back up there, or if he's going to try to make the pass. And as I say that, oh, no, look at that. There we go. Okay, so there we go. We got the first indications here that, as soon as I say anything, the opposite thing happens. Nick Tullo looking to the inside now on turn 1. That can get dicey. That's going to spit Dan all the way out. Now, that turn 1 not off track, is going to be another big potential point of conversation as we go, because that is none of that is technically an off track, and the rules that we have are that you got to kind of leave some room for the person to come back onto the racing surface, which is
That's
a little
right.
different than the public, as we see Jake Ashe making the pass and going a little bit into the grass there on the exit of the bus stop. Sorry, there's just a lot of stuff going on. We've got 2x2 racing, basically. So Michael McLeod out there on his own island, and then we've got Jake and Rusty, and then Nick and Dan. And then a little further back. Oh, no, Keith Lee actually making his way up. He's up 5 spots right now and about to make contact here with that twosome of Nick and Dan, which is great to see. Keith Lee working his way up through the grid.
So what's going to be really important for these folks that are close together, like let's just take P4 and P5 with Nick Tullo and Daniel Pagowski. If they can work together, basically leapfrog with each other going up the long hill straight after T1, they can make real ground on the people ahead. And so it's just a matter of how much do you trust, and how comfortable are you with basically giving up the position every other lap to your partner. But doing it is really, at this point, the only way to make up good ground outside of the pit stops.
Yeah, you really got to pick those spots to trade positions too. That was nicely executed right there. Although Dan really testing the track limits himself. Uh, you definitely don't want to trigger a slowdown for sure because could ruin the whole momentum for both of you. But keep your eye on those intervals on the scoring table there. Michael McLeod now working on a 5.5 second lead. So that continues to increase actually from that.
And
Some
and what's interesting is Michael did not replay his fuel strategy from Interlagos with that first lap splash and go.
right. So you were talking about similar fuel levels and strategy. We saw Michael McLeod confuse, not, I mean, yeah, I guess confuse us with that
He was too
first
smart. He was
lap.
too smart for us. Let's admit it.
Exactly. Not doing that tonight though. So obviously, based on what we saw happen last week, I'm sure everybody else in the field is paying attention to what he's doing and when he's pitting, because he had played that so masterfully at Interlagos.
You were making a point about the off tracks in that bus stop chicane, that thing called Little Bend. And what happens here is if you are drafting, you're coming into that bus stop chicane with a lot more speed than you're used to. So it takes a few laps just to adjust to that. When you're on a track, just doing test laps on your own, you get into a rhythm in that bus stop chicane. But when you're drafting, you're just slingshotting into that, maybe 3-4 miles per hour faster than you're used to. And at least for me, that causes an off track pretty regularly.
Yeah, that's a great point. The speeds that the draft carries, you have to adjust for that. So simply coming out and practicing hot laps is going to actually, I think, almost be a negative, because like we've talked about, the technicalities of this layout of Watkins Glen, there just really isn't that much to it. But what there is that impact of the draft that you get, that slingshot effect that you're talking about. If you're ill prepared to handle that going into these corners, then you're going to have a bad time.
Well, back up at the front, Michael McLeod is really impressing. He's setting purple laps. He's the only one in the 126s so far, and he's up to over a 6-second lead now on number 2, Jake Ashe.
Really the class of the field at the moment. Jake Ashe, Rusty Kronberg still having a battle themselves. At this point, they're, I think, hoping that pit strategy reigns king. Rusty, what a save. No.
Now, the interesting thing here is, does Rusty just try to run away from his draft partner and go it alone? To try to catch Michael, maybe with faster pit stops, or does he let Jake, catch back up? It's really, at this early point in the race, you could really argue for either one of those two strategies.
If I were Rusty, I mean, clearly whatever they were doing wasn't working because Michael is just continuing to gap them and put space. Although, I guess that's a moot point because Jake Ashe dipping into pit road, he's going to be the first really to mix up this fuel strategy. We do actually take that back. We have had other folks down pit road, but running up front there. Now we're on 2 different fuel strategies, so we're gonna have at least 3 overall. Really curious to see how this works out.
I think last week at Interlagos, Jake also took a earlier pit stop, and I again wonder if that's something that he and his coach Justin Rebello think about, and sort of it could be something that just resets him also after a couple of near misses on the track.
Yeah,
and Jake, look at this. He's going to catch a draft partner here, I think, also. Oliver Hartley, who's got some speed, and that might be helpful to both of them.
Yeah, so I want to go back and see what happened at that start, but we know that Oliver's fast. He just kind of seems to be a victim of his own circumstances sometimes, whether it's technical or just mistakes. But you could do worse than to have Oliver as a drafting partner there, trying to work your way back up through the field. The Other thing I was gonna say, yeah, Jake obviously gaining a lot of pace here through that coaching program with Justin Rubello. If nothing else, a very cerebral driver and really looking to utilize that strategy to gain an edge. Although he is getting faster in the car itself, I think that his strategy piece of the puzzle is a little bit stronger, I think, than some of the other drivers in the field. But time will tell if I'm correct in that assumption. Keith Lee into pit road uh, on a now completely different strategy than everybody else. So we're gonna have a lot of different fuel strategies playing out, and that's gonna make things real confusing for us as we, tick down on the time here.
I think we're confused most of the time anyway, so it
Yes,
shouldn't add
yeah,
too much.
that's valid.
And talking about confusion, what happened to Ian Worrell? I think I missed him also. He was a podium finisher last week, and he must have had some incident early on.
Yeah, let's take a look back at that. I do have a notification that he did crash. Looks like coming through the carousel, which is easy to do. That was on lap 4, and did not make contact, but ended up in a really awkward position, having to back up over cones. Poor Ian.
Ah,
So yeah, that's gonna cost him some time, but overall, could have been a lot worse.
that's looks almost identical to Lewis Hamilton's situation at Imola today.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm sure Ian will appreciate the Lewis Hamilton
Well, there's similar accents. It
comparison.
all
Yeah.
messes up.
See if he's got the pace, if he's got the
It looks like
Mercedes.
Jake had another off track. He was leapfrogging pretty well with Oliver, and that turn 9, that left-hander just before the last right-hander on the front straight is trickier than it looks. It's a place where it looks nice and cambered, but it's amazing how loose the rear end gets there. And it just looks so inviting, really wide exit, beautifully cambered. And if you just go a little too aggressive on the throttle, it's incredible how quickly the rear end lets loose. And we've seen that a few times now today.
And I don't envy Jake at all. We're in an ARCA car league together, and we're racing at Watkins Glen next week, so we've been doing some practice. And you got to kind of, to your point, that turn right there, I think, is where a lot of people lose a lot of time because they're taking it too slow in the ARCA car. But it's because it's like you don't really know how to take it. You got to take it fast. You can carry some speed and moment. It's a very momentum-based turn. And yeah, to your point, if you carry just a little bit more through there than necessary, then it's bad. But at the same time, if you slow up too much, then you've lost your whole rhythm leading into that front stretch, which is also a problem. So it's a very critical turn that I don't think gets enough attention.
A little bit further up the field, Rafa Bofel has been steady. He's moved himself up to P5. He's a little bit on an island by himself, but he's actually making up time to P4. And P4 with Nick Tullo, who's been working pretty well with Daniel Pagowski. And, with a 5-6 second gap, and 2, possibly 3 pit stops, it's still, P4 is anyone's position still.
Yeah, you can see there lap 8, lap 9, incrementally getting a little bit closer. Russ Pomberg coming on the radio. It looks like Michael McLeod is in pit road. That's going to be maybe the signal to everybody else to start coming down, which Rusty does. Let's see if Dan Pagowski. No, Dan Pagowski's staying out. So now we're on, 7 different strategies? I don't know where we're at. Rafael Bofil, to your point, coming in. Let's see if Barry Stockdale, what he decides to do. He's going to stay out with Dan. Joe Zubovich got loose early, had some good pace. He was running P2 at one point. Let's see what he decides to do. He's going to come in. Oliver Hartley staying out. I think that him having to have pit on lap 1 earlier. 2. He pit on lap 2. Jake Ashe also having pit on lap 6 will stay out. You can see Rusty making his way. So Jake and Rusty, the old team, getting the old team back together again after all of that. Let's see if they can't work their way back up to Michael McLeod. But Dan Pegowski, Barry Stockdale, and Michael McLeod. We got a Canadian podium at the moment.
You betcha.
You betcha. The only the only I guess asterisk there is obviously Dan Pegowski, Barry Stockdale still have to pit, and you can see the intervals there. Just probably not going to be enough. Let's look at the gap. Yeah. So Dan Pegowski working his way in.
Looks like Daniel's in the pit lane now.
He's going to leave Barry Stockdale to either lead. Nope, he's going to come in. So there you go. 17 seconds is the gap. Pit lane time. Probably will lose them the lead, if not more. Obviously, we see Michael McLeod here making his way.
You know, like Interlagos, this is a pretty painfully long pit lane. It just feels like you're in it forever. You can't even, depending on where your pit box is, and it takes a while even just to see where your pit box is. It makes you feel pretty impatient while you're going down.
Yeah, it kind of feels like you're chugging along and everybody else is at full speed. Very frustrating. But everybody has to follow the same rules. It's just tough to realize that when you're chugging your way down there. I think we've got everybody having made at least one pit stop. We'll pull up the pit lap so everybody can see just the very different strategies that everybody has. Oliver Hartley now in P2, you saw had a rough start, and he came in on lap 2, so kind of almost pulling the Michael McLeod strategy from Interlagos and seeing if he can work that to his effect. Jake Ashe in P3 now, having gapped Rusty Pondberg by a couple seconds. And all of these guys, the top 3 on wildly different strategies. And then you can see 4 through 7, roughly the same. So Oliver is now going to come down pit road. Jake losing his draft partner.
A little further down the field, it's nice to see Keith Lee turning in some good laps, and it looks like part of that is he's got a good draft partner in Barry Stockdale. And you know, I'm guessing that Jonathan Dockery and Joshua Dancy, who've been coaching Barry, probably have talked him through a little bit about draft strategy here.
I think Barry, is that the Mercedes paint scheme there? Is he hoping to channel some Hamilton and Bottas to... Oh man, they're going too wide there through the S's. That is an interesting place to try to pass. Not one of the typical passing zones for the Skippy at this track, at least. But Barry Stockdale does have very fast hot lap times. He is one of those guys who can get out there and get after it, working best when he's on his own. Now he's got Keith Lee behind him. We'll see if Keith can hold on to the draft and basically let Barry pull him around the track. All right, so let's reset here. We've got 20 minutes into a 35-minute race. Everybody has made at least one pit stop. We've got Michael McLeod, and then 10 seconds back to Jake Ashe. Rusty Pondberg will round out your podium at the moment. Dan Pegowski, Nick Tullo, Rafael Bofill, Barry Stockdale, Keith Lee, Matthew Shepka, Oliver Hartley, Joe Zubovich, and Mr. Ian Worrell.
It's really looking like Michael's race to lose here. And as you've said in multiple broadcasts, this can be one of the toughest situations to be in. You're just finding ways to stay focused and not lose focus. In fact, last season in SF2, in at least 2 races, I made unforced errors while in the lead. And in fact, one of them was right here at Watkins Glen. It's just one of the things, I think, when you're a rookie, especially, that's just so hard to learn. How do you just stay in the zone when you don't have anything to chase?
Yeah, the worst feeling in the world is losing a race just because you have lost concentration, and you really don't have anybody else to blame but yourself at that point. And I think that people lose sight of the fact that that is tougher than it looks. Jake Ashe in for his second pit stop. That's going to be, again, who the heck knows? Okay, so Jake Ashe in for a second pit stop. He's deciding I'm going to undercut and see what I got because I'm clearly not catching Michael McLeod. And following him in is not going to yield any results. So Jake in, that's going to leave Rusty Ponberg, Dan Pagowski, as you can see this fearsome twosome here in P2 and P3.
It's super exciting to see Rusty way up there in a podium position. He's someone who's just been really just focusing and working so hard week after week, and oftentimes not having great results to show for it, but you can tell that there's real improvement when you just watch him on track every week. And now, look at that, he's in P2 late in the race.
Yeah, and looking very strong. Like I'm looking for areas of weakness there, but making passes like that on Dan Pagowski and being able to carry the weight there. These guys. Oh, and as soon as I say broadcaster's curse. Oh my goodness, poor guy. Oh, and they're gonna collect. Was that Barry? No, that wasn't Barry. Who was that? That was Nick Tullo, who's gonna work his way in. So we do have a faster pair, yes?
Yes.
All right, so they did make a little bit of contact there, but that's gonna be pretty much of zero impact. Although maybe Nick decided to have a little bit different fuel strategy because of that, and call an audible there at the last second, head down pit road, get that damage fixed, fuel up.
He should be okay though, because I think fuel-wise he'll be able to go from here to the end of the race, and so he'll get the fast repair really won't have any impact. And despite the mishap, we are just seeing really great improvement week after week from Rusty Pottenberg, and his speed tonight was showing it. And it's that turn 9 exit again. It just
we just talked about that. Yeah.
It's got me nervous for the SF1 race.
Tough one to get right. Well, we got Keith Lee now up to P4 with Barry Stockdale hot on his tail. And things just keep getting spicier here. Jake Ashe leading Matthew Shepka and Oliver Hartley, who are going side by side through the carousel, which is no easy task. So Shupka gonna bring it down pit road. That's gonna leave Oliver to try to chase down Jake Ashe. These guys have already made 2 pit stops. Let's bring up the number of pit stops for everybody to look so you can see who has made their 2 and who hasn't. Basically, oh boy. They're working their way around Keith Lee, who had just come out after making his. He had just. Did he not gone down? Oh, he pit less than lap 7. All right, so never mind. Making the pass on Keith Lee there. The top 4 still have yet to pit one more time.
Right.
That is what we're looking at right now. So Jake Ashe is your leader of the two pit stop drivers. His gap up to the leader right now is 40 seconds, and we are looking at 48-second pit times. Rafa Bofil opts to dive into pit road, unlike leader Michael McLeod and second place Dan Pegowski.
And again, for Rafa, it's good to do this. He was a little bit on an island, and he knows he needs to do another pit stop to get to the end. And by doing this, in fact, his spotter, Pim Luth, might even be looking for an opportunity for him to catch a draft partner by taking fuel now. In fact, he's going to come out in a little bit of traffic. And if he can make up a little bit of time up to, who is that in front of him? Oliver Hartley. Then there's a chance to really make up some ground when the people ahead still have another pit stop to make.
Nick Tullo currently sitting in P12. Still a fast car and a drafting partner at this point. Joe Zubovich is in P7 right behind them. So that's that threesome right there that we've got our camera trained on. Michael McLeod is still out front by 20 seconds, and the top three are the ones who have not picked. So we're down to three who still have to make one more stop in what I'm assuming is one more stop. Who knows? If we've learned anything from last week, it's that these guys are much better at fuel calculations than we are.
So now we have Rafa Bofil and Joe Zubovich. Looks like they're going to draft up the hill. We'll see if they do a little leapfrog here. And Matthew Shepka is tagging along right behind. And that's one other thing about the Skippy is it does seem like you get a little stronger pull if you're drafting behind two cars instead of just one. And so that could really be a benefit to Matthew Shepka.
We've got a few good close races going on here. Oliver Hartley making his way out front of this second pack, which includes Jake Ashe and Barry Stockdale. All of the... Actually, no, I'm sorry. Barry still need to pit one more time. So Oliver Hartley, Jake Ashe are your leaders, if you will, of the drivers who have made two pit stops. I got to imagine one more is required, but like I said before, this is why I don't race. This is why I call it races. Michael McLeod right now out to a 21-second gap over Dan Pegowski. Both of these drivers having made one stop. The last time that they hit, well, looks like there you go. Michael McLeod going to be coming in. So Michael McLeod having pit now. Dan Pegowski is working his way through the last set of corners. Let's see what he decides to do. He will stay out one more lap. Interesting. All right, so he's going to be the last one other than Barry Stockdale.
And it'll be really interesting here to see the gap back to Michael McLeod as Michael makes his way out.
He's working his way out, and you can see there Oliver Hartley and Jake Ashe going past the start-finish line. He's still going to have a bit of a gap. 7 seconds, it looks like it's going to be. And barring any fuel shenanigans, that's going to keep it McLeod's race to lose.
Yep.
And it looks
You know,
like.
for all,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
for all the talk about draft, Michael's strategy this time hasn't been really about fuel. It's just been about driving away from everybody. He's just consistently been setting the purple sector times, and I guess when you're in the lead, if you can do that, then that'll be a winning strategy.
I'm kind of shocked that this field got as stretched out as it did. Although I'm looking now, it does look like Jake and Oliver deciding that Michael McLeod is a bridge too far, and this is the battle now for second place. And who's going to finish out the podium? Oh no, Oliver Hartley
No.
ducking back in. You saw him key up the radio there. We do not have the audio on that, but he keyed it up. It's going to leave Jake. I think that's why he swung out wide.
And Barry Stockdale came in right behind him.
Interesting. So now we really got some islands out there. It's no. The smallest interval we have right now is 5 seconds.
What is really interesting is if Daniel is going to try to finish the race like he did at Interlagos last week without taking more fuel to get to the end.
So he pit on lap 11. Pit on lap 11. We're on 22 right now. And we only have, though, a couple laps left because you see at the time, this is not a lap race. This is a timed race. We are approaching 33 minutes here with 1.5 minute lap times. Probably looking at 2 more laps. No, yeah, he's going to dive in.
Right.
Not going to make it.
I was just going to say it would be incredibly painful with just a lap or 2 left, to run out of fuel 2 weeks in a row.
Right. Rather, yeah, instead of taking the L, just do the refuel. Well, that gives Cloud a 13-second advantage over Jake Ashe.
And now there is a little bit of a battle for that third and last podium spot between Daniel Pagowski and Rafa Bofill, although Rafa has a lot of ground to make up, about 4.5 seconds.
Ultimately, a great run here by Dan Pagowski, able to make that last pit stop. And to your point, it looks like he's got P3 in the bag, barring shenanigans.
Right.
Barry Stockdale up 3 spots to 5th place here. He's got Oliver Hartley hot on his tail, though. Holy cow. Oops.
And Keith Lee is still running just such a good, solid race. He's up 2 spots in P9.
That's what I always judge my races by, where I start, where I finish. You can move up. I think that's not that a good race.
So I think this is...
He's going to go way wide, though. And there goes his wheel.
We do seem to be...
Back.
Are we jinxing people?
Yeah, we just need to stop talking about it. Yeah, he's going to stop. Looks like he's going to. Well, we are past. So this is the white flag lap. This is the last lap here. Michael McLeod coming around the carousel for presumably the last time. He's going to lead Jake Ashe by 13 seconds. You can see on the leaderboard there, we've got quite a bit of interval, so no real close battles to be had at the moment. Michael McLeod continuing his dominance in the Skippy Formula 2 series. Congratulations to him as he comes around the final turn. And we'll bring it home. Barney waving the checker flag there for him one last time.
What a fantastic drive.
Yeah. Not much else to say about that other than just pure dominance. Jake Ashe obviously has it in the bag there for P2. Not a bad.
Great drive for him too, because he had a few adventures off tracks, but kept his cool and brought it home.
And Pegaski will round out your podium. Rafa Bofil will come in 4th, up 3 spots. And here comes Oliver Harley, who had speed all night, but once again, unable to put together the full night. Although P5, not too shabby. Sure, Matthew,
newcomer.
Yeah, I'm sure he would want that one back. He had a great starting position and ultimately ended up 5 spots down. But I'm really interested to see what he's got to offer moving forward. I think he's going to be a threat ultimately for the championship.
Definitely. And no fuel mishaps this time. It seems like
everybody
even though
finished.
Yep, we had similar fuel restrictions as last time, but I think everyone was a little bit more careful this time and was able to drive hard right to the end.
Well, that'll do it for the Skippy Formula 2 race. We've got Michael McLeod. Congratulations to him on his another victory for him. Jake Ashe and Dan Pegaski on the podium. Rafael Bofil, Oliver Harley, Matthew Shepka, Joe Zubovich, Rusty Pontenberg, Barry Stockdale, Ian Worrell, Nick Tullo, and Keith Lee will be your finishers for tonight. Congratulations to all the drivers. Peter, thank you so much for joining me once again. Awesome to have you with us. And any final thoughts on the race?
I was just really impressed with everyone's driving. If you just think about it, how clean a race this was. We saw some good drafting, some real kind of nail biters, especially going through the bus stop. But overall, you've just got to love how just the obvious improvement in all of these guys week after week. And as I said last week, it frustrates me because I was with these guys all last season, and they're all top to bottom faster than me now, which I just don't get. But I love watching them.
You gotta stay on your A game there, I guess, is the moral of that story, because they're coming for you. Yeah, no, it's great. We'll cut you loose because I know you've got a big race coming up here, and we wish you the best of luck in the Skippy Formula 1 race. Carry that momentum that you had from your season championship, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks.
All right, we will join you guys back here shortly with the Skippy Formula 1 race. I'll throw up the timer there when we got a good hack on when the qualifying is going to end. And yeah, stay tuned. Welcome back, race fans, to Sunday night Skippy racing action here at Watkins Glen International Speedway. Although you wouldn't know that because none of the data is showing up. Hopefully, you saw the track layout there on the Skippy Formula 2 race. Let's try to reset that. And joining me tonight in the booth is a lot of people, actually. We've got Jason Weiss joining us. How are you doing tonight, Jason?
I am doing well. How are you, Chris?
Fantastic, man. Thanks for coming out and lending your expertise tonight. Pete Mobran also in the house. I wasn't sure you were going to make it, Pete. How are you doing?
Always at the wire. You know how I like to keep it interesting until
You
the end.
You like to keep it spicy. I know you do. On the track and off. Is Ian's in the booth? Are you listening?
I am both listening and I can speak.
There we go. Okay.
I'm doubled up tonight. It's not just me. I have a mini-me with me tonight.
Excellent. Hello? So we've got Ian and Mini-Me. Is that Max or?
Yep.
Outstanding. So we've got the World Clan in the house, and later on we will be bringing in Mike Bowers, who has offered up his services for some in-race interviews. He's in the booth with us here, although we will leave him alone for the time being as he focuses on trying to set down some hot laps here in the qualifying session, which we are 5 minutes into. It's a 10-minute long session. Let's bring up our leaderboard here. We've got 34 drivers currently on the grid, although potentially 2 more will be joining the timing tower there as they lay down their hot laps. Well, I'll tell you what, we've got a lot of expertise and big brains here in the booth, and I am not one of them. So I'm going to hand it all over to you guys to drive the conversation. First things first, Jason joining us in the booth tonight. Talk to us about what you expect to see out of the drivers here tonight at Watkins Glen.
I really expect a chess match. As we all know, Watkins is a very draft-heavy track, and just looking at the times that the league has been putting down all week long, I really expect that lap times are going to be really condensed, consolidated on top of each other. So it's really going to boil down to racecraft, race strategy, pit strategy, which I'm sure Pete will speak much more intelligently to than I can. But it's going to be really interesting. These are very interesting races to watch.
So I just got word here that Mike is not going to be qualifying. So while we have an opportunity, let's talk to Mike. He's going to be starting from the back of the pack here. What is the thinking behind starting at the back of a 36 car grid, and what is your strategy going into tonight?
I'm not all that smart, and I think it'd be fun.
Just an additional challenge.
I've kind of screwed up most of this season so far by my lack of talent or lack of IQ. And I'm missing the racing. So instead of drafting this thing, I don't much care for the draft game. So I thought, why not try to gun from the back? And maybe I can drag a couple guys with me that don't normally get to the front and help somebody out. So I'm going to try to do that without making a mess and being as careful as I can, but just having a little fun and see what it looks like from the other end.
Well, I can't argue with that. Obviously the risk there is there's a lot of drivers here, cold tires, and you know, it can get a little interesting. But that being said, there's a lot to gain from being smart, picking your points of passing, having that potential. Now, I will say potential because we did have a extremely clean race for actually quite a few weeks now. And so you may have an opportunity to kind of leapfrog your way. Hopefully there doesn't have to be any wreck avoidance, but really curious to see how this plays out for you. Do you have a fuel strategy going into tonight, or are you kind of playing that by ear as well?
You know, I have not practiced. I ran one public this week. I've got enough practice to be quickish. And I calculated what fuel I'd need in an open air scenario. I'm going to wing the rest. What the heck?
Sounds good to me, man. Well, I'll tell you what, we're closing down here on the qualifying window, so we'll let you go. And Good luck tonight. We will have an eye on you, and if the opportunity presents itself, we will definitely bring you into the booth for a little more discussion.
And Mike,
Yeah, stop.
If you keep your ears on, you might be able to get the brain trust in here to give you some fueling advice.
That would mean I'd have to spit out my gum because that'd be too many things for me to do at one time. I'm not very talented.
Fair
I
enough.
can't chew gum, listen to you drive the car, and it probably just confused me. So I'm gonna go on instinct and have fun. But stop in anytime you want. If I'm singing, mute me again.
There we
Okay.
go. All right. Yeah. Fair warning. You may go hot mic at any time. But
That's cool.
All right, guys, I'm going to go dark for the briefing. I will be back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's some good laps been put down here, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, real quick, thank you, Mr. Mike Bowers. We will check in with you here shortly. The number 76 of Mike Bowers, he is going to be having some fun tonight with trying to work his way back up through the field. As Jason gives the briefing, Ian, you said that you've got some hot laps here, and honestly, a little bit more of a gap than I was expecting through some of these qualifying times. But we saw that in the SF2 race too.
Yeah, but the first 18 cars are all in the 126s.
It's not that big of a gap.
And then the next, and all the rest of the cars are in the 127s. So, I mean, you know, the slowest hot lap is a 127.9, and the fastest is a 126.3. So there's not that much between a field of, what's this, 38 drivers?
Sure. When we talk about that, the current hot lap being that 26.3 as well, that one metric that I always kind of like is what's the 1 full second. That gets us all the way out to P30 before we start seeing 27.3. So there might be a little bit more gap than expected, but we're still talking about 30 drivers within 1 second.
I know, it's insane. It's insane. Do you think we're going to see a snake, a non-stop snake around the track with everybody just driving behind each other in the same position?
Absolutely not. No. I don't think there's the slightest chance that that's going to happen. One of the things that I like last season about this track, and I let's be honest, I had to dig deep to find something I liked about this track last season. But one of the big things that came out of the woodwork that I think is going to come into play tonight is some of those drivers you don't necessarily expect to see in top 10s, top 5s, and like the official races end up coming from way back, right? It tends to be a bit of a great equalizer of a track because, bluntly, it doesn't require, extremely precise, car control and handling. It doesn't require, elegant strategies. It's, just a lot of draft, being in the right place at the right time. Things can get shaken up at any moment. It's really difficult to call the outcome from the start. Your usual suspects, who knows?
Well, I mean, look at where excuse me, where Carl Drunke is. I mean, he's qualified in 28th, which is really out of position for him. And then look at who's up at the front. Andrew Cole's in P10, Jack Moffat's in 11, Eric Lamoureux, who is can be a very quick driver, is in 12th. All of those guys can move forward. Whereas Steve Dewar, Steve's in 16th. I always like to talk about Steve. I have a big hole in my but I have a soft spot in my heart for that man. I don't know why. I just do.
He has been a fun one to watch his driver arc over the last couple of seasons. You almost can't call him a dark horse anymore for those top 10s. He's right there, right? He's become that kind of a contender.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Raphael Bofill, he's a handy driver as well, and he's in 19th, which is I think a little out of place for him too. It's odd. I mean, and Spencer Clark, he's in 24th. Not sure what's going in there. See, Oliver Hartley's got a black flag for this week, so that's going to push him down from where he is. Whereas he qualified in 25th. But I think he's the only black flag in the field tonight. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I see Jason's put himself in 38th. I don't think Jason's actually going to race. But Mike, Bowers, as you heard just a little while ago, is going to try and see what he can do from the back. How far up do you think he's going to make it?
You know, it was funny that he talked about trying to bring a few folks with him. Because I was speaking a little bit to, you know, what I had observed in those official races is you never really know who's going to make it through. You know, I think it's going to be a game of roulette for him. It could be, you know, a hard charging kind of evening, or he might get an immediate lap one separation. It's entirely luck of the draw with what happens with that traffic ahead of him. It's not so much about pace.
So you mean you're talking sort of once they get through up to the first go through the bus stop, where you get all sorts of weird and wonderful things happening.
Sure. There's also, you know, of note, the second, third, fourth, and all subsequent trips through the bus stop.
Yeah, but once your tires are up to heat, it's the bus stop's not particularly that really difficult. I mean, I suppose it is when you're in a lot of traffic, but
sure, and that's the case with this whole track. It's not that difficult. No one corner is particularly technically challenging until you're 5 wide, and then the ratchet up a little bit in skill level.
I think 5 wide in any corner is going to be challenging on any track. Except for maybe T1 on this track, you know, where you've got that humongous piece of runoff. But anyway, oh well, they're gridding up. They're gridding up now, so we should soon see them getting moving. Where's Chris? Hello, Chris, you back?
Oh yeah. Okay, so real quick shout out here. We've got Team Dancy in the house. Scott Bell's checking in from Disneyland, of course, and Team Rebello checking in for Justin and actually Jake. So there's that coach mentee team right there. So we got some great fans checking in. Hello to all you. What's that?
Running on empty fans. Any of them in the house?
And, I don't know. Nobody. I haven't seen any running on empty fans checking in just yet. But to your point, we've got a Decker on the pole here. Congratulations to him, Chris Herrera. Speaking of team running on empty, will be starting next to him there on the front row. The lights are about to go out. There goes Barney with a green flag.
So Max, when do you think you're going to get the first bit of shenanigans?
I'm feeling bus stop or after I start drafting.
Jeffrey Decker's got away well in first place. Closely followed by Chris Herrera, and Edwin Valerino is already there's already a challenge for the lead going on.
So far, so good. We've got a clean race, it looks like.
Yeah. Get Chris running to the bus stop. Here we go. And we've just had a change of leader. No, Jeffrey Decker's still in first. And Chris, they're trying to pull a little gap, I think. And then you've got Edwin and Sammy in second and third and fourth. Paul Bachelor's in fifth, Justin Rebello, Joshua Dancy. They're all getting through the bus stop fairly clean.
Now, surprisingly, we have a few little gaps already up at the front.
Yeah, they're already pulling out. And I see that Mike Bowers is already on a charge.
So we did have a few issues. We got a few people in pits. We see some damage through here. We might have to go back, see what we can dig up. But overall, it looks like people, for the most part, filing in, 2 by 2 in a lot of situations, but not too much of a mess for what we would sometimes expect in those official races.
So unfortunately for the fans in the audience, I know we've got a Justin Rebello in the house here. Let's see what happened to him. He jumped to the pits. Going through the bus stop the first time. Always a challenge, and he's going to lock up the brakes. And unfortunately, the 74 there, I think that's Thor Tola, is going to collect him. So Rebello doing everything right there, but unfortunately, just nowhere for him to go. Joshua Fitz-Johnson also having another crowd favorite. And gonna lose a wing, apparently, because of that contact. That looked like a little bit of neck there, but
And I think there's one more car somewhere in the background. If you want to just roll back a little bit, you'll see someone on the way into the bus stop was in a weird position as well. So I'm not sure what happened there.
Looks like Edwin and Sammy have successfully made contact or closed the gap, really, with Jeffrey and Chris.
Yeah, someone parked back there. Let's see if we can find out.
And then in the third pack, we have Paul, Jack Moffitt, Joshua Dancy, Eric Lamoureux, Andrew Cole, Michael McLeod. We've got some new names playing around in the top 10.
Yeah, so it looks like right now we've got 4 major packs up front, a decent number of cars in each, and we've got a 4-car pack, followed by 7-car pack and another 8 or between 5 and 8 car packs all the way back here. That initial lap through with the issues in the bus stop has caused some significant separation between the packs, but still plenty of good racing to go on within these packs. Nobody is out there by themselves right now. Everybody's got friends.
Well, poor David Pena, he doesn't have anybody in front of him, so he's going to pay a price in the pits, I think. I think Joshua Dancy might be in his draft. I can't really tell. But David Pena broke off from the front two groups. So he's going to be burning some fuel that they're not.
Well, this is a race where pretty much you don't really want to be in the lead, do you? You mean you want to be like car number...
second or third.
Yeah, second or third.
Because drafting is going to be a big part of this race because you're basically going to be pedal to the metal the whole entire time.
Well, this is definitely where it gets interesting. I know Chris Herrera really loves those lead lap bonus points that we like to dole out. So he's got to choose between that and working with Jeffrey Decker to at least conserve some fuel so he doesn't get beat in the pits.
Very true, very true. Because that's going to make, that's going to be a big deal in this race.
Yeah, so it looks like Chris just conceded the position in the chicane. It'll be interesting to see if he tries to take it back before they go across the start-finish line.
When I talked about Pena had broken away a little bit. What was interesting about that is he was firmly embedded in that second pack before the last trip through the chicane and that last lap. And already that pack has made contact with him again. So I don't think there's going to be much chance to get away here, which if you're Pena's, maybe a good thing, right? So you can, tuck back in and have some more options for that fuel strategy. But if that pack behind him that hasn't quite reeled him in yet, they're in the draft. But if they start fighting at all, he might once again find himself out there by himself.
Yeah. If they work together, they have a chance of maybe pushing themselves forward a little bit to catch up with the front pack. But the gap between Pena and Sammy Bridges is growing all the time. It's now just over 3.5 seconds.
Sure, and much like we discussed with Imola last week, it's not too hard to stay in touch with a pack, but if you get a big separation, it's very difficult to make up that ground again. And Watkins is that taken to the nth degree.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Carl Dronke off track, off pace.
We're getting a bit of a change now in this pack, the second pack, where they're changing over leaders now.
Yeah, they're doing a pretty good job working together. You can tell that they're staving Edwin and Sammy off just enough. And they'll be coming up on some lapped traffic shortly here. We'll see how that plays in.
Well, that's going to be another big thing in this track, right? It's a relatively short track with relatively high speeds. I mean, as Max was saying, you're flat out for what, 80-90% of the track. You're flat out.
Yeah.
Lots of blue flag racing going to happen tonight.
I was taking a look at how Dronke went off pace there and dropped his car. I don't know if he's having some equipment failure or what had happened, but he just bailed out of T1 took the runoff, brought the car to a stop for 2 to 3 seconds, and then got started again. There
Wow.
must have been something wrong going on with hardware software failure.
Oh, we got some Rusty fans in the house. I wonder if that's Rusty fans or Rusty fans. I don't know. I'm watching this. I'm watching this second pack, and they don't really look to me like they're working together. They look like they're still trying to be the leader, with David Pena back out in front.
Yeah, and that's going to be tough on this track. That could be unproductive in early laps.
Yeah. Although he and Jack Moffitt are starting to make a tiny little gap between the two of them, and pull away from the guys behind. So maybe the reason that they've done that is because they're just a little bit quicker. I don't know.
It looks like Grandin had a big moment with the pack ahead of him going 3 wide, all stacked up ahead of him. Looks like he may have got a little bit of net code, or in any event, rear end got a little bit loose on him going into the bus stop, and he had to take himself the scenic route through the outfield.
Yeah. So Chris Herrera leads, Jeffrey Decker in second, Alan Reno in third, Sammy Bridges fourth, David Pena fifth. He is about 4 seconds behind Sammy, followed by Jack Moffitt, Eric Larameau, Paul Bachelor, Joshua Dancy, Max DeGuacamo. Michael McLeod, or Michael McLeod, I should say, is all the way up into 11th now. Yeah, that's interesting. JR's in 12th, Steve Dewar's in 13, unlucky for some. Sean Tradiak is in 14, Raphael Beaufil is in 15, Dimitri and 16, Jake, Ashe, Durkin, Andrew Cole, and Peter Nodwell roll out the 20 at the top.
Yeah, I think Peter was the other half of that Grandin incident, unfortunately. I'll tell you, every time I want to say that Edwin and Sammy have closed the gap, Chris and Jeffrey just managed to pull a new trick out and gain it back. But it's fascinating watching these two groups of two at the front. One group trying to stave them off, the other group trying to close that gap.
Well, there's another group coming up, all dragged along by Mike Bowers, who's now up to 22nd place. And he's got a group with Jason, Rusty, Spencer, Daniel, Carl, Peter Lee, Rich Butler. There's a huge, looks like, someone's pinned the tail on the donkey here. Actually, it would be better if it was Dronky than they could pin the tail on the Dronky, but never mind.
And as we had just talked about with those two pairs up front, they've gone ahead and closed that gap once again. Nobody getting away.
Yep.
They are evenly spaced, that top four once again.
Yeah. And I'm looking at...
This is going to get interesting.
For
chicane coming up. Decker tucking right back in for the chicane. Very well done.
So I'm looking at the fueling for Jeffrey. He's got about another 4.2 laps of fuel available to him, and Chris has about 4.1. Excuse me. Edwin's at 4.1. Sammy is at 4. Eric's at 4.1. So Jeffrey Decker seems to be doing quite well on managing his fuel. He's got just a little teeny tiny bit more than the folks behind him, which I find odd.
I like how Sammy's running his race. I like that he's sitting back and letting Edwin do this work. They're not in jeopardy of losing contact with Chris and Jeff Decker, so he can sit there and probably save just a hair more fuel than Edwin is, perhaps, and just kind of let Edwin figure it out.
So Edwin has got about 3.5 laps of fuel. He's got about 3.5 right now, and Sammy is at 3.4. So Sammy's slightly lower than him, but I think it's probably more in the telemetry than the reality, if you know what I mean.
I do see we have had what looks to be our first scheduled pit stop with Andrew Cole.
Ooh, yeah, maybe he's trying the undercut.
Wow.
Although it's going to be difficult. I mean, the problem you've got is twofold, right? So if you stop too early, the amount of fuel that you can put into the car to fill you back up to full is not enough to get you as far as you need to go to be able to low fuel in your second stop. So there's a real balance that you've got to kind of figure out, you know.
I do see Jack Moffat and Eric Lamoureux came in as well. So it looks like this is, we are going to start to see quite a few more drivers come in, I'd imagine.
Chris, you want to put up the pit stop graphic?
What do you want, pit lap or pit stop?
I think we've got some folks coming in and pit stopping now. So who's been in?
There we go.
I find Chris is being very quiet tonight.
I like it. I like that you guys who know what you're talking about are the ones doing the talking.
Well, I don't know what I'm talking about. I just make it up as I go along.
All right, so we got
Yeah,
pit lap
Pete,
up there. You can see lap 9 through 1, which I think is probably incident / black flag related, but all of the players, and actually, you know what? Sorry, Jason, I'm gonna move us down to 37 people there, so we're gonna cut you out. But there you go. So basically, the top 24 right now have yet to. That's where we're at.
Oh. Well. What do you think, Pete? Do you think any of the people at the back have got a chance of leapfrogging their way a bit further forward because of this?
I'd say it's still anyone's game as far as being able to, and you described that situation perfectly. It's, can you get a leapfrog? It's not necessarily coming out in the pack that you want to end up in. It's having cars spaced out at those 0.5 to 0.8 second intervals ahead of you, so you can start moving your way up that line. And at this point, with another stop yet to go, who knows? Anyone could get luck of the draw with that spacing on the draft.
But of course, the other thing you want to do is when you do the spacing, is you want to make sure that the folks you come out with are the ones that you can work with to draft forwards.
So, sorry, I'm going to interject here real quick. I noticed that Eric Lamoureux is out, so I'm going to look here real quick. He's the 78 machine. He and Jack Moffat look like they collected each other along with the 909 there. That is...
Oh.
Was that Andrew? 909.
Yeah,
David Pena.
And Jack
So,
Moffat.
Eric Lamoureux is out. That's going to change things up just a little bit.
Yeah. I love watching Eric race because he's like Teflon. He's the anti-Carl in the universe where Carl just drains all the bad luck. Eric manages to just narrowly avoid it most of the time. So it's unfortunate to see that.
Well, that does go to speak to what Ian was talking about. It's one thing to have the cars set up ahead of you, but it's another to have those cars that you personally have experience working with and understanding how to communicate your intention with and be able to swap those positions back and forth. It's even two really excellent drivers. If they don't have that track time next to each other specifically and understand each other's styles and tendencies, it's really hard to pick up on those little subtle indications of where you'd like someone to make the pass or to indicate that, I'm going to go ahead and make this happen, please drop back. Without having that track time, these sort of, I'm sure that wasn't a particularly aggressive intent on either of them, but that's going to happen when you have a miscommunication.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny that you bring that up. I can't remember who I was talking to earlier this week, but we were discussing what's so nice about league racing. And it's that you build up this, this docket in your head or this profile of each driver. And you dip into that anytime you're around that person on the track. And you really do build up that profile for 20, 30, 40 people that you race with week in and week out. and it's a wonderful dynamic of racing in this league.
You know, the ones that scare the pants off you. Is what you're trying to say.
We have a couple.
It also makes it so much easier to hold a grudge over
It
multiple
does.
seasons.
For sure.
Allegedly.
Burdened by having to
Allegedly.
remember their name.
Well, you can see the pit strategy playing out here. All the leaders now, everybody having made one pit stop. So let's watch the race off pit road.
I'm really curious to see how quickly Sammy gets out of there. Oh, he's the last one moving. Interesting.
Speaking of people moving, Mike Bowers is up to 19.
Wow. Go, Mike.
It was interesting seeing all those folks in the pits. It looked really weird. Let's all stop together. You would have thought that someone would have said, hey, I'm going to do the opposite of. You know what I mean? Anyway, Chris is all fueled up. Good for another, looks like 18, there's about 18 laps remaining in the race, approximately. And he's going to be about 0.2 of a lap shy. Who is that? I'm looking at here. Who is that? That is Chris Herrera, and there's a lot of sparks coming from his car, like almost continuous as it's driving down the road. I don't know what's going on. Something broken?
There's definitely a spot shortly before the chicane that I was seeing. I've only done maybe 30 minutes on the track this week, but there was a spot before the chicane where I kept seeing sparks.
I'm seeing sparks nearly for the entire track.
Huh.
Which is kind of odd.
That may be a local client issue. I'm not seeing that on the broadcast or my screen.
Well, that's such a pity because
I wish I could add it.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not doing it now.
Maybe
You've got the Ultra Slam package, got the spinners.
Oh my god.
So it's, that front pack has definitely been mixed up since before the pit stop. We now have Chris, and then Edwin, and then Jeffrey Decker, and then Sammy.
You know, what was interesting is I see them having very, very similar times in their pit stalls, except for Edwin. Edwin has found some secret, I'm telling you, because I've got him at almost 2 seconds less than everybody else in that same pack with the same fuel-saving opportunities. And we saw that in Interlagos last week. We also saw that where there's a couple seconds where it's impossible to tell where you pick those up on fuel saving. He's uncorked some kind of secret sauce.
Got that hybrid motor. We were talking about that. By the way, I want to bring up Steve Dewar, who just got passed by David Pena, or at least for the moment, up 7 spots into P9 here, having a hell of a season.
He is. He really is.
And there's some great racing going on back here. You can see Rafael Bofil trying to look inside. Steve having a very defensive line. Sean Trediak is going to push the issue going into T1 there.
Yeah, this group definitely getting a lot more aggressive all of a sudden. You mentioned Pena made his way up. That was actually a double pass that he made up half in the grass around the outside. These guys are starting to get a little feisty.
Getting the elbows out, mate.
Yeah, and I'm hearing some frustration among the driver chatter about getting slowed down through the bus stop.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets interesting because this is something that we talk about internally, that everybody races for their own reasons. Somebody might be here for finishing positions, somebody else might be here for the corner to corner battle, and both are okay. One might be frustrating for the other.
Absolutely. But Steve has just pulled himself a little bit clear of the pack with he's up in front now, I think. Or he's pulling himself a little bit clear of the pack. Got Max de Guacamo in front of him. 3 sets.
Meanwhile, Decker is putting an odd gap between himself and the other 3 at the front. I'm sure they'll close it up. It's just interesting that it developed in the first place.
Jim, that can be a light mistake. When we say an odd gap, that's 7/10.
Yeah.
Right, which is well within draft. That's easy to close up. That can be going too wide through the bus stop when you really didn't intend to. That's easy to drop a half second or at least a handful of tenths. The driver I'm interested in is, where did Dancy come from in P5?
He's been doing this all season.
Breaking away from the nearest pack by 5 seconds.
Yeah.
He just snuck up on me.
What happened to Mike Bowers? He's now a lap down.
His throughput fell, and I think the system disconnected him. But I agree, Pete. Dancy has made consistent progress since he joined the league, but something got dialed up between seasons 5 and 6.
Yeah, absolutely. Just the raw pace and racecraft. I feel like I'm repeating myself, which is the best problem to have. Talking about all the drivers in this league, because everyone having such great progress. But Dancy's definitely one of those ones who's suddenly a podium contender. Right?
Yes.
Bagging his best finishes this season, out of absolutely nowhere. So, really starting to get on the, maybe he might be running for championship.
Yeah. He had P2 at Suzuka, and it's a real shame. It was almost P1, but due to track limits on the last lap, positions had to be swapped there. But for all intents and purposes, he was absolutely capable of pulling home the win.
Yeah, absolutely. The final score aside, he's in the running.
Yeah,
right? It just, solidly proved that he's going to take those wins if he could get them.
So top 10 are now Jeffrey Decker, Chris Herrera, Edwin Valerino, Sammy Bridges, Joshua Dancy, Max DeGuacamo, Michael McLeod, Steve Doer is in 8th, David Pena is in 9th, and JR Hoops is in 10th.
Rafael Bofill having an unfortunate off track there. Let's see. He and Sean Trediak going side by side into T1. Oh my. Oh, that was that Andrew Cole?
Oh no.
Cars flying.
We lost to Team Jason.
Yeah, no, this one's going to be a little bit tricky. Sitting in the booth here, unfortunately, we can't hear the drivers' meeting, but this particular scenario was something that was covered, with the overall community in general, in our Discord channel this week, which is, that really wide runoff into T1 looks like it's, frankly cheating, right? But it isn't. That's the line in the real world. Any series that runs there in the real world, they're going to go over that curve, right? And that's just considered the track limits for the track, and that's how it is. Now, there's always some debate about the official sporting code in iRacing versus the code that the league goes by here. In general, the idea is if you go off the limit, if you go over the white or the yellow line, as it were, there's no obligation to let you back on the track. Well, with our league rules, we explicitly say, yes, you do need to be able to leave room, but you can't just, run over the grass or force your way back in. But you are entitled to a car width. And these are the sort of situations where, lack of precision with either leaving the room or staying tight enough to the edge of the track as you re-enter after going wide can end in tragedy.
For sure. And in fact, I did cover that in the driver's briefing, so I'll be interested to look at that replay again later and listen to my own briefing.
You don't want to do real-time stewarding there, Jason?
Make sure I got it right. Not this time. Not this time.
Chris, I do have a request that you take us off of Sammy's car, because I'm starting to feel a little hungry.
It does look delicious. I think
I was going to say, I want to... Go ahead. Sorry, Chris.
No, you're good. We've got this whole group back here. I mean, look at P10 through 23. And I think some of this has to do with incidents for sure. But, I mean, we've got this whole range of drivers. Kyler Reed, who we have not talked about, out there running on his own, up 19 spots. Just behind him, Jason Berkheimer up 16 spots. He's dragging Dmitry Koroblev up one single spot. Now make that 2 as he makes the pass there. But Dan Pegowski up 15 spots. Rusty Pottenberg up 12 spots. I mean, this whole middle pack here, some of our, so they got 2 Team Jason drivers, Pim Luth and Peter Lee, going side by side through the S's. Obviously, a lot of trust there between those 2 drivers to make that maneuver happen. All these guys up 17 and 14 spots respectively. Rich Butler, by the way, 48 in one of my favorite paint schemes of all time there, up 15 spots. Like, all these guys in the middle pack here, just doing a fantastic job.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned Rich. He's another one who's just made a boatload of progress since joining the league. I know that he's been working with, I think Jack Moffitt is his coach. And whatever they're doing is working. So huge progress there.
Yeah. No, they're all
looks like Raphael Beaufil looks like had an illustration of some of the quirks of the current damage model. Best I can tell, I think he managed to black flag his car coming up that uphill left, just barely tapped the wall on the right-hand side. And as he got onto that straight before he got to the bus stop, made the call that the car was unsafe, pulled over, and had to tow.
Oh, wow. So one of the things that we cover in our driver's briefing is we ask that any battles between lap traffic be put on hold as they're facilitating blue flags. And we just saw a great example as the lead pack was coming through. Thor and Jeff Torbeck needed to facilitate a pass of those 4, and they did it expertly. So if anybody is ever looking for a how-to, what we just saw there on lap 19 was great.
Dmitry Koroblev, whatever. Dimitri's just said that his VRE blacked out on him, so that was a problem that he had.
Oh, that's the word. I've had that happen to me. That is awful. I had that happen to Phillip Island. I was making a run for P5, I think, and then my VR headset just went black. And very fortunate that I didn't take anybody out with me. But it happens, so that's a thing.
That happened as well, I think I was using an Oculus Rift at the time, and the whole thing just locked up. Or one of the controllers decided that the battery was dying, and it needed to tell me right then.
It looks like our second pit window has opened up. We've got quite a few takers entering in on their second scheduled pit stop, with, I imagine, more to follow. So after you get out of the second pit stop, all the fuel strategies goes out the window, and it's an all-out sprint to the win. So it'll be interesting to see who decides that it's time to really get the elbows out, and who thinks that you might still be able to make some progress to catch whatever pack happens to be ahead.
Now, did Edwin duck in early? As you mentioned that, I see that we're down to 3 in that lead pack.
Yeah, Edwin had ducked in early,
Okay.
and he had, that killer 2-second advantage in the first stop. So we'll see where he comes out on that second.
So Edwin,
and he pulled it off last week. I remember last week when he came out of the pits, we're like, there's no way this guy's finishing the race. And lo and behold.
Yeah, I'm really not kidding when I think he's figured out a technique that nobody else has.
Yeah.
Because frankly, it doesn't make any damn sense.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, it says, I'm looking at his telemetry, and it's giving me an estimated 2.8 laps for him right now. Which, we're at 37 out of 45 now. It's going to be more than that. So, now it says 3.7 laps.
Now, the fuel telemetry with the third-party tools tends to be off for any car but your own, just because of the lack of information that's available in the feed. So that can be unreliable when you're looking at different cars.
Right.
Yeah, he definitely has a trick up his sleeve. Because when I'm in the race and I see somebody short fuel, or what I think is short fueling, on their first stop like he did, I just get a grin. I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
good for me, I guess. But then he pulls it off.
Yeah. Unlike the the SF2 race last week.
I feel like I need to go back and watch that SF2 race because it sounds like my kind of race.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of people short fueling, trying to make it on one stop. Needless to say. So our top 10: Chris Herrera, Steve Decker, Sammy Bridges, Joshua Dancy, Steve Dewar in 5th, Michael McLeod, Peter Nodwell, Gurkham Dimar, Kyle Reed, and JR Hoops. Edwin Vallerino's in 11th. Max de Guacamo is in 12th. Sean Tradiak, David Pena, Oliver Hartley, Jake Ashe, Daniel Pogowski, Rusty, Jeremy Grandin, Joshua. Round out your top 20.
And it looks like Chris Herrera just took Jeffrey Decker 2 wide through the chicane. I think they were trying to do a leapfrog, but couldn't get it done in time. Slowed them down just a little bit.
Yeah, that pack of
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that pans out when they pit and come out, how close they'll be to Edwin.
Now, a little bit further back in the field, I'm interested in this P20 to P27 grouping here. So we've got 2 major groups, Berkheimer, Peter Lee, Rich Butler had been up there, but it just kind of started to lose contact. And then the second group with Grandin, Rebello, Moffitt, and Backler. They've been trading tenths as groups for a couple of laps now. I'm thinking that there's going to be some activity that comes out of the second pit stop to shake up that group.
Yeah.
And we've got Decker and Bridges up front, as well as McLeod, Dancy, all these front guys starting to come in. Herrera and Steve Dewar opting to go around another time.
Yeah, interesting.
So Bridges just beat Jeffrey Decker out of the pits. So the race is on.
Now, interestingly, I had mentioned that Edwin had been 2 seconds quicker than everybody else on their pit stops, and I'm actually seeing that he was 2 seconds slower than Decker and Bridges. So maybe he was, in fact, short fueling this time.
So I have to imagine that I have to imagine that Chris is going to be going into the pits. We'll have Justin Robello a lap down right behind him.
And Chris who's got in front of him? Herrera's now going in the pits.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Decker has like Sammy Bridges is ahead. Andrew Cole's saying something or the other. And Jeffrey's just slipped past Andrew.
Okay, here we go. Herrera exiting his box. It looks like he's going to be back substantially.
Wow. Yeah, he's gonna have
So
a little
quite
work
a
to
bit
do.
of time, quite a bit of time lost in the pits there to Bridges and Decker. Bridges leading this race with a 2-second gap with him and Decker back to Herrera.
It's going to be tough for Herrera to work that out. He won't really have anybody to unless that's Edwin behind him. Yes, it is.
No, that's Edwin coming behind him, so they're going to be able to go ahead and make contact.
Yeah, they might be able to work this out. Definitely the work.
Now, this is with 8 minutes to go. This is absolutely going to be. These are all smart drivers, all four of them. I expect to see a lot of cooperation between these pairs to try to get out some space.
Yeah.
But if they get all together, I'm going to expect Herrera to try to push to the front immediately if they do start to make contact.
The good news, hopefully, is Herrera will be finishing with at least a drop in the tank.
Well, we'll see.
Cross your fingers. I'm crossing my fingers. I'm sure Pete's crossing both.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of folks who are going to be hoping that they do not hit, the leaders do not hit the start-finish line at a particular time to cause an additional lap, which can happen.
Yeah, we talked about our rivalries, I think, last week, and Pete, you and Chris have an awesome rivalry. It's always been fun to watch.
Yeah, it is one of those things, when you get into those like Hunt Lauda kind of rivalries where it's like you don't want to see him win unless you're not there, and then he better win.
Yeah, make us look good.
Sammy Bridges just passed Jeffrey for the lead, and then Jeffrey's in.
This might be that's Sammy's first. Well, he looks like he's in second. Or maybe
this pack with Pena, DiGiacomo, and Peter Nodwell, a lot of 2 wide, 3 wide, a little bit of Jocelyn getting on the way through the bus stop. So I think that one's going to start to heat up.
I think Sammy is about to cross the line in first for the first time in SNS. That's awesome. Congratulations, Sammy.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Although I think Jeffrey...
Now that group P17 to P23 that we had an eye on just before the second pit stop, sure enough, they've managed to group together, and we're going to have ourselves a big old knife fight with them.
So that's Jakeson, Birkenheimer, Pim Luth, Jeremy Grandin, Peter Lee, that lot?
Yes, sir. So they are trading tents here and there, but they have definitely found each other and are lighting up as one massive group as we go around the lap.
Woo. Jack had to jump on the brakes there and nearly went in the back of Peter Lee. Going around the final corner. Jack Moffat passes Pim. Oh, they touch! They touch! Pim has got his brakes locked. He's in the big, huge runoff area. He's managed to keep out of the barrier.
Oh, no.
Crashed by Jack.
Oh, no.
Tire damage.
And has tire damage and had to tow. Ugh.
Yeah, it looks like that was enough to end it. Again, these cars exceptionally fragile this season. So, iRacing continually working to improve and make the damage models more realistic. But, frankly, this season, any small amount of, even the lightest graze can absolutely end your race immediately.
Yeah. Actually, I think Pim hit Jack rather than Jack hitting Pim.
Yeah, at least from the cam that we had on the broadcast, it did look like that. But of course, we'll do a full review. It's just amazing what the different camera angles can show you. But yeah, at first glance, that is what it looked like.
Peter Nodwell.
Yeah, from that view as well, Chris. That's a good shot from Pim's roll bar.
And Chris, that speaks to one of the nice things about this league, right? One of the strengths of this league is when we get into, if there is some sort of an issue where there is some contact or a conduct question, the stewards take a look at that from every possible view, right? We jump into every car, every camera, play it back 6-7 times because it can look so different. Not even just looking at a specific driver, but what view of that driver you're looking at can completely change the story.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen, decisions have swung entirely just by looking at it from who we might think is the offending driver's cockpit. And then you look at the information that they had at the time, and, it might look incredibly damning from, the far chase or even the roll bar, but then you put yourself in the cockpit. And it's like, you know what? There's really no guilty party here. It was just racing. But, for everybody listening, particularly the drivers, I know sometimes there's frustration, maybe a sense that we rush to judgment, but there really is a lot of time, effort, analysis, and scrutiny that goes into those decisions. And if we can't reach a confident decision among all of the stewards, then we don't force the issue. So if there's anything other than just trivial disagreement, usually about maybe the severity of a penalty, but if there's anything more than trivial disagreement as far as who's at fault, we try to be quick to chalk it up to a racing incident.
Yeah, typically the logic there is if it takes a lengthy debate with multiple parties involved, then it's too close to call.
Exactly.
Then
Yeah.
we just
If
call
we
that
can't
racing.
armchair quarterback it, how could the driver figure it out?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, it looks like Herrera and Edwin got a little bit unlucky with navigating some of the back markers where Decker and Bridges, got some gifts with free draft on the straights, and that has opened up a 6-second gap between that first and second pairings of cars.
Yeah, and now they have company. Well, it looks like maybe not. They do not have company.
Yeah, that whole front group is all split up now. You've got 2 groups of 2, and then a bunch of singles. So our leaders are now Jeffrey Decker, followed by Sammy Bridges, Chris Herrera, Edwin Ballerina, Joshua Dancy, Steve Dewar, Michael McLeod, Max DeGuacamo, David Pena, J.R. Hoops, Peter Nodwell, Sean Tradiak. And as I'm speaking, Michael McLeod has passed Steve Dewar for 6th place.
Wow.
Okay, who is this McLeod guy and why is he in SF2?
I was just going to say, somebody's SF2 days might be numbered. Didn't he win last week?
And this week too, I think.
And this week,
this
yeah,
week?
I believe I caught the end of that. He's putting in a hell of a showing.
Interesting.
Yeah, he has a very quiet voice. He's from Canada. He says he's in Toronto, he's in Mississauga. And so I think he's a bit of a dark horse because I've been to Mississauga and there's a lot of folks there that cannot drive vehicles. I mean, they just have no freaking clue. I was driving a rental car and was completely terrified by some of these imported people who came to Canada and think they can drive and can't. And let me tell you, Michael is not one of them. He is not one of those. I'd like to know a little bit more about his history.
Not to interrupt, but we've got a 2x2 lead here. This is what I believe to be the final lap, side by side going into the bus stop.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Sammy and Jeff duking it out. And this is new territory for Sammy in this league. This is great to watch. Love you, Jeff, but got to go with the underdog here.
Sammy's just barely holding it on. How wide can he make his car?
And defending this next corner is tough.
It's tough because Jeffrey has just drafted right up past him. But Sammy has a faster run at that corner and is just on the outside. So he's going to be on the inside coming into the final corner. And if he can
Oh, my Lord.
It's going to be a race to the line.
Oh.
Who has... And I think Jeffrey's just got the
wow.
Oh, my God.
Gentlemen, that was an outstanding finish. Congratulations to both of you. Jeez.
So close.
Quarter of a car length.
I mean, that's how you fight tooth and nail, respectfully, the last few corners for the position. That was wonderful to see.
Edwin Ballerina brings it in third. Joshua.
We got JR Hoops, Peter Nodwell putting on a show here too. I can't call it. I think Nodwell's got him by a nose. Hope we see a few more of those. This is some fantastic 1-2 finishes here.
Wow.
Reed, Dan Pagowski.
Yep. Dan's just in front. Kyle's got a good push off that corner though. Get up behind him, buddy. Get right up in his gearbox because I don't think he's quite got enough speed or distance to do it, but close. Jason Burke.
Okay, next up, Berkheimer and Hartley. Let's see what you got.
Hartley is again. I think he's just a little bit too.
I think
far.
he's just too far back. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Peter Lee, Jack Moffitt, side by side again. Now Jack's got a little bit of wing damage. That's going to hurt him as they get up into fifth, but he might be able to edge it out, and just not quite.
That was close.
Wow. You know, for all the hassle or for all the griping that Watkins gets, it does produce some really nice finishes
He's
like
going
this.
very slowly at the moment. I think maybe he has run out of fuel. I don't see him like weaving the car, but he is driving really, really slowly towards into the final few corners towards the finish line.
Wow. And Rich up 12 positions. Kyle Reed was up 20. Pagowski up 18. Berkheimer up 16. Really a lot of hard chargers here, but I think Kyle Reed's going to get the bonus point for that this week.
Yes.
With 20 positions gained.
Well, that was a really exciting race to watch.
That was
worth my,
Especially
the ending. Yeah, that's absolutely right, Max. What did you think?
Yeah.
very entertaining.
Very entertaining. Well, I think that's a good understatement there, right? You're a bit on the edge of your seat for parts of it, weren't you?
A lot of side-by-side racing.
It's getting closer, guys. It really is. You know.
Faster.
Jeffrey Decker, your winner tonight by 0.03 seconds. Great battle there toward the end. Edwin Viorino will finish out your podium, and the rest is history. So we'll scroll through that. Fellas, what are your impressions of the race tonight as we wait for the interviews to flow in?
It was, like I said, I will admit that Watkins is not one of my favorite tracks to drive, particularly in the Skippy, but it produces excellent racing, and I'm thrilled for Sammy. You know, I mentioned last week and this week, you know, the progress that he's made, and then we saw it on full display right there. The side by side between him and Decker, that last lap was a clinic. So congratulations to both of them.
Yeah, that was there was some most excellent driving there.
Yeah, you know, with how Watkins has gone traditionally in Skippies, I was prepared for the worst, right? You know, I make a joke, but I actually did it. I went through and looked up dumpster fire in about 15 different languages, just in case we ran out of content. This was a great race. You know, we did see some contact. We did see some of those miscommunications going into the best stop, you know, causing some issues. But overall, we saw some really good, intelligent racing, some really good communication between drivers, good pack racing, you know, 2, 3, 4 wide situations being able to get sorted out before the technical bits. These guys are really starting to learn how to race as opposed to, you know, just drive. And it's really fun to watch. And, you know, on the hard chargers, I think we had 8 cars up 10 or more positions, but not all that high of attrition. So a lot of those are like real positions gained.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
sure.
let's bring in the drivers here. We've been waxing philosophical on all these things, but who better to illuminate what we've been talking about than the drivers themselves? Chris Herrera coming in here, finishing P5, top 5 overall. Great finish. Chris, how was the race from your perspective?
Well, I guess I can't be that upset with a P5, considering I was up there in the front. I guess I'm not a really big fan of this track. It's fun to race, or I guess it's fun to hot lap, but it's not really fun to race because the draft is so strong, and you can't really pull away from people if you have a faster pace than them. But, you know, that said, we had a really good race with Jeff Decker and Sammy Bridges and Edwin Viorino. So congrats to Jeff for pulling out the win. I'm not sure if you guys were watching at the end, but once I realized that Edwin wasn't going to work with me to try to catch up in the last like 7 minutes or so, then I decided to slow down and try to save some fuel, because it turns out my first time using JRT, thanks Pete,
No.
Well, I've heard stories about this, but I forgot to take into account that when you're fuel saving, it's calculating your laps based on that. So had I continued to go...
If only somebody, preferably named Pete, had explicitly mentioned that it's critically important to keep track of what you did in those laps it's using to calculate.
Hey, I crossed the finish line and I didn't sputter, so I'm going to consider that a win.
That's a win.
Now, also those last couple laps, you know, I wasn't able to watch the whole way through, but it looked like Decker and Bridges ahead had gotten some luck of the draw catching those back markers on the straights.
Yeah,
and
I
it looked like
took
you
my
and Edwin just got some really bad luck on back markers. How was that?
Yeah, that was how was that? That was frustrating, as you I'm sure know.
No, I'm just curious if it had the impact that it looked like. There was so much going on throughout the field. I could only take a couple quick glances, but it seemed like every time there was a back marker close, it was right before the bus stop, right? Or right before you need to go into that sweeping left. And it just seemed like the really odd times where Decker and Bridges got the slingshot.
Yeah, exactly. They definitely got that slingshot towards the end, and they may have gotten one or two other ones, or maybe that's just me hoping for reasons why I couldn't catch up with them. But yeah, it was exactly what it looked like, and that was very frustrating because I knew they had, I think it was Rebello was in front of them, and he's very, very fast himself, so that's a nice draft to be behind. So anyway, throughout the rest of the race, I saw Decker and I were battling for those laps led points, and if my math is correct, which I think it is, he got 2 bonus points for laps led, and I only got 1. If I had 1 more lap led, I think I would have gotten another point. And that very first lap, I actually took it easy. I probably could have battled him for that. But anyway, he had a great race. Everybody up there had a great race. So I can't be too unhappy with P5, especially considering I spun out the second to last turn. I'm going to have to review that. I think, of course, I squeezed Edwin on purpose. I think either maybe I just didn't give him quite enough room, or he didn't go as tight as he should have. But either way, I'm glad neither of us got completely taken out there. So that was good. That was a fun race, but very frustrating at the same time. So with that, I know you guys got a few other people to talk to. So shout out to Running on Empty and to all you guys and everybody else out there. So thanks for everything, guys.
Yeah, good run, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, let's bring in, that was Chris Herrera there. Looks like we were just watching a little bit of contact. We are bringing in now Sammy Bridges, who had a fantastic run overall, and by my count, 0.03 seconds away from his first ever Sunday Night Skippy victory. Sammy, talk us through what you were seeing tonight.
Well, that was the main thing. Can you guys hear me, or am I still?
Oh yeah, you're good.
Yeah, sound great.
All right, cool. Yeah, dude. I was going. That would have been my first win, but that's my second place in SNS too. So I'm stoked either way. But I'm very aware of how close that was to being the first one. Still,
I thought you had it.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, so did I. Yeah, like me and Decker were chatting about it right after the race too, and I was a little surprised because he was nicer to me in the second to last, in like the last couple of corners than he probably needed to be. And then I think I did the same in the last one and just gave it to him because I stayed to the inside. I hugged the inside so hard that I actually had to drop to third, and he just got a better run. Like that was all it took. I almost had it. Had it. First time that I've really gotten the fuel strategy right too. Like I started to sputter maybe 100 feet past the line.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, watching you guys battle that last lap was a treat, and as I said earlier when it was happening, that's really how it's done. You guys race each other hard, but that's as clean as it gets. It was awesome. So good job. I was rooting for you.
Roll.
Yeah,
that's how we roll. Yeah, it's you guys have rubbed off on me, man. I've got this. I basically have this league to thank for that. You guys know how far I've come. I was like a fucking danger. Oh, sorry. I was a danger on track.
We still have a few things to work on. We'll get to that.
Yeah. Apparently. Sorry. Turn the bleeper on for that one. I just ruined the broadcast. Classic.
Now, what were you thinking in that last half of the race? So just to give you an idea how well you nailed that pit stop, by the way. Decker came in with a 10.7 second stop. Herrera came in with a 12.6. I think Valerino was at 12.0. You came in at 9.8 seconds in your pit stall. So almost a full second quicker than everybody else on that second stop. Wow. And then it was, you and Decker with Valerino and Herrera. I think they're about 2 seconds back at the end of that second interval. And then there was a lot of back marker traffic that seemed to make the difference from where we were sitting. Talk us through how that section of the race went for you.
If I had a cup of tea, I would have been sipping it. It was the first time that I've actually felt calm in these races. Usually I get pretty nervous about making the next mistake or if I'm going to be able to hang with these guys. But this time I just, like, if I had a run on Decker, I took it. And otherwise I purposely stayed behind him. I mean, the second half of the race felt pretty similar to the first, just easier to manage because it was just the two of us. But like into the bus stop for most of the race, I wasn't braking because I lifted so early. I would just shift to fourth and get back into it. And that's what I did for the second half too. It was just the last little bit. I did have one moment. I think hopefully it's not going to get me in trouble, but I had a weird. It showed up as a 0x when I was passing lap traffic on, I forget who it was, but they asked me to go to the right, and I stayed behind them up to the last second. And I don't think it caused a problem for either one of us, but I think I might have a ding on that one. Hopefully not. That was really the only
I
issue
doubt
that
it.
I
I
had.
mean, yeah,
Did it look like anything on the broadcast? I got pretty close
No.
to him, but
we didn't see anything. No.
okay, then it's probably fine then. Other than that, yeah.
No, what we
honestly,
did
was
see is
smooth
it looked like
sailing.
that coordination and teamwork is really clicking. And it looked like, you know, you guys
Yeah.
caught the back markers at the right time, were able to figure out how you're both going to get around. And whereas Valerino and Herrera behind, you know, they copped some people at some really poor times, really tricky times.
Yeah,
And it seemed like you guys as a
lucky.
pair really capitalized.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I made a
definitely did.
comment. I really liked how you ran the first part of your race. You didn't really challenge Edwin at all, and you let him burn some fuel that maybe you didn't. I mean, is that what was going through your head, or was I just making stuff up for the broadcast?
Yep.
Awesome.
No, absolutely. Yeah, because I was actually surprised because like I went into this race plan, I was like, okay, qualify P4. That's actually better than I expected. This is kind of perfect because all I wanted to do was get with the front pack and then try to play the fuel game. And
Yeah.
I was planning on hanging everybody out there. That was what I was going to do.
It's my
I
strategy
am
too.
so proud.
I mean, honestly, like they're probably. I got up to a point where I'm doing a decent pace here for sure. I'm confident about that. But like guys like Decker and Edwin, I like on raw pace. They're still faster than me by a tenth or two, you know, at least. So it like. I don't know. So I hung him out there for sure, but I think it actually helped because if I had gotten in front and started to slide a little through the big sweeper, that would have slowed us all down. So it was being conservative, but also kind of being the yeah.
No, it was masterfully played. It was great to watch, and great strategy.
I really enjoyed it. It's the first race that felt calm through the whole thing, and it was. I guess I'm onto something with that. I get a little too excited. If I play it that chill, maybe I'll keep having results like this. That was a fun one for sure. Thanks.
I'll tell you what, if you're going to get a P2, that's the way to do it, right? You know, a couple hundreds off of someone like Decker, you know, in that hard one, you know, final corner. It's those kind of things where it's not even, you know, I won't say you'd always prefer to be first. But if it's gonna be a second, that's how you want it to go. That was a fantastic finish.
Yeah, totally. We congratulated each other like immediately after the race. Good stuff from start to finish.
Well, hey man, you put on a hell of a show for us tonight, and I think you'll be well pleased to go back and watch it, not just from your perspective, from our perspective, and we thank you for that. And I'm very excited to see what else you have in store for us this season because. I feel like every race has been an improvement, so there's nowhere to go from here but you know, that top spot on the podium. Not to put any pressure on you, just saying.
Oh yeah, of course not. Not that I'm absolutely fixated on that fact already.
Not that you were only 0.03 seconds away, but
hey guys, yeah, great race. I didn't win.
But you were so close you could taste the pizza on the car behind you.
Yeah. Hopefully I can keep this momentum going because I feel like I've been making improvements specifically this season. Yeah, it's if I can keep this up, there might be a win in there at some point.
No doubt. Absolutely, man. Well, hey, congratulations again. Hate to see that you were that close to victory and have it snatched away, but it was, from our perspective, if it means anything, it was just you put on a hell of a show. And I think you earned some fans tonight out there in YouTube land and Twitch land. So
nice. Yeah, no, it means a lot. And I couldn't agree with what you guys said more. I mean, if you're going to get P2, that's the way to do it. it was racing the whole time and just smart and respectful. It's what it felt. That's what I was trying to give, and I felt like that's what I got. So I think good win for sure.
So that's the whole point of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, man. All right, guys.
Good feelings.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll see you around, Sammy, and next week. And good luck to you. We will. What's your because you stream a lot, right? What's your Twitch handle?
I do, yeah. Sammy Good Times on the old Twitcheroo.
The old Twitcheroo. Check him out, Sammy Good Times, and he does a lot of good content out there. So smash that subscribe button or whatever the saying is, and
whatever the kids are saying these days. Do a shoey.
Do a We'll see you around, buddy.
All right, guys. Thanks again.
Later. That was Sammy Bridges there, P2. Let's bring in the guy who ultimately was victorious by 0.03 seconds. And, I don't know if you were listening there, Jeffrey, but Sammy had some things to say about you. So if you want to come at him right now, just off the bat, go for it.
No, I wasn't listening, but I will say I'm super glad that Sammy and I got to duke it out there at the end. That was a lot of fun, and it's awesome to have him up there with us at the front of the grid. That was a great time.
That's it.
Was that essentially what he said, or was he?
No, he said that you're a fool and that he hates your guts. And
there's something about insulting the honor of female members of your family. There's
whoa, out of control. All right, we're gonna have to have an offline conversation, him and I. Throw our virtual helmets at each other or something.
He had nothing but great things to say about you, man. And I'll tell you what, I'm glad that you guys had as much fun as racing it as we did watching it, because it was a heck of a battle, and nobody knew what was going to happen until honestly iRacing updated. You know what I mean? It was just such a fun battle to watch.
Yeah, I had no idea. I think I was maybe a little. We were talking in standby, and I was a little bit too nice maybe in the penultimate corner. He was a little bit too nice in the final corner, so I guess it evened out. It's pretty hard to separate us though with that time in between us at the line. So it was just as much a win for him as me. I think.
Well, that's very kind of you. But a podium is a podium.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it was really good fun though. He actually, I think he did a great job. I'm talking more about him than me. He did a great job in the pits. He ended up jumping me after the second pit stops, and I think it was just fantastic. All around, just a great race. I don't really know what else to say. It's just a lot of fun.
Good stuff.
It's a good place to be in life when you're speechless when you got the win in a Sunday night Skippy race. So.
Exactly. I'll say one thing scary, man. Sammy was like, yeah, dude, I was just super relaxed there at the end. I had some smooth jazz playing, just talking to my chat on stream. I was like, dude, I was tense. My wrists hurt. I was like, I needed to loosen up. So I don't know, man. He's a cool customer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough. That's not what you want to hear. That he was super cool and relaxed. Because I know after I have battles like that, I have to go take a shower because I'm pitted out, all that. Sammy sounds like the kind of guy who's, oh, okay, what are we doing next? What's he's probably ready to go on and do the next race now.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's dangerous. He's found the speed, and I don't know. We're gonna have to watch out for him now.
Very good. Well, you have anybody you want to give a shout out to before we let you go?
Yeah, as always, just big thanks to the wifey for always letting me do the races, and you guys for doing the broadcast, and anyone else watching. Always appreciated.
Cool, man. Good stuff. And next week,
good race.
Ohio.
Actually, I have no experience in Mid-Ohio, so I'm gonna have to do some work next week.
Not a lot of people have spent time in Mid-Ohio.
Oh, it's a fantastic pairing. I think a lot of people are going to like it a lot. It's a lot of what I liked about Oran Park with the big elevation changes and technical mid-speed corners, but about half the size, so less exhausting. Right? But it does lend itself to these cars. I think with this group and the sort of racecraft we've been seeing from people this season, that's going to be a hell of a race to watch.
Well, you've got me excited now, Pete. You going to join us next week? It sounds like you want to join us next week.
I wanted to join you every week. But no, things are what they are for me. It's a good thing. I'll be coming back probably next season, because you need someone to be a little bit closer to you this far in to the season, with having the 3 points from Eric Limmer last week, and then 25 points out to the next person in the overall SNS championship. I can't be having you have that sort of breathing room.
Listen. I'm panicked about it, man. After last week, like P8, I was like in shambles. So I don't know. I'm like, I don't want to compare myself to Lewis Hamilton. All I'm saying is, like, I feel like his paranoia when he's in the car and on the radio. Like, I feel that right now. I'm just like, they're gonna get me. I have no chance. What's happening? I'm gonna lose this race. Like,
These tires are garbage.
Exactly.
They're about ready to fall off.
Exactly.
Right.
Bono, I'm gonna lose this race. So yeah, it's.
Yeah, something's wrong with the car. It doesn't feel right. I've got a weird vibration.
Oh, yeah.
Only 10 seconds in the lead. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every little thing.
Class of the field tonight, Jeffrey Decker. Well done. Congratulations. We will see you next week.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
All right, gents, we've got that's it. That's the race for tonight. And I just want to get your final thoughts on what you saw this week and what you're looking forward to next week. Pete.
Yeah, I touched on next week the pairing with the Skippies. Mid-Ohio, one of those lesser-known U.S. tracks that I think is highly, highly underrated. On technical merit, side-by-side opportunities for racing, it's a blast, and especially in a little bit slower, smaller cars, right? We do see, like the IMSA series going there in real world tends to be a little small, a little narrow for that, but for these cars, yeah, it's going to be fantastic. And talking about when you asked the same question last week, and Sammy started to touch on that a little bit when we talked to him too. These drivers getting more and more comfortable, more and more confident being wheel to wheel and being able to communicate with each other. I'm really excited to see what happens when we go from a little bit less drafty track into this tighter, more technical track that is Mid-Ohio, and see if we start seeing that same sophistication that we have with the draft game into something that requires a little bit more aggressive approach, like Mid-Ohio.
Interesting.
Well said. Ian, what do you got?
Well, I mean, I've never raced Mid-Ohio in any vehicle, so I'm really looking forward to seeing it as a new track. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a fairly short track. I think it's nearly something under 3 miles around. So again, we're gonna we'll probably have the front guys lapping some of the folks towards the back. So there's going to be having to figure out how to do all the passing and stuff like that. It looks like it's got some neat looking S's in it. Are they, Pete? Are they anything like the S's in Suzuka?
Not really.
Not so much. So the big thing with Mid-Ohio is it has dramatic elevation changes, again, similar to Oran Park, where you're just falling off a cliff in one direction and then falling off a cliff in the other direction, and sideways through about a third of it in Skippy. It's a gigantic glorified roller coaster go-kart.
Oh wow! Okay, so that sounds like it's gonna be a lot of fun. Like I say, I've never raced there, so if I can find some time during the week and go and get a couple of laps in, that might be a bit of a laugh. But the racing tonight was amazing. It was so cool to watch, and there was again, we say this every week, and people listening must be so bored, but there was great racing all the way up and down the pack. We had a bunch of different groups forming. They were working together. They were fighting with each other. And I mean, look at how the finish came up, right? I mean, there were multiple cars that were finishing, within hundredths of a second of each other. I mean, what a great race it was to watch. I had a lot of fun chatting about it with you lot. And I think that, having a good set of people in the booth like this, first of all, gives Chris a bit of a break because he hasn't flapped his chops for most of the evening.
Which everybody appreciates.
I don't know about that, but we'll see. But also, I mean, we've got a much broader pool of people with, ideas and thoughts and knowledge that I think we bring back towards the audience who are listening in on our broadcast. So, and it was a lot of fun to work with you guys on this one. I always enjoy it, and look forward to many more. So yeah, that's all I've got for you.
Also well said. Jason, what do you got for this Watkins Glen race and Mid Ohio, which I guess technically is your hometown track. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half away, and it was funny to hear Pete compare it to Oren because I made that exact same comparison. I think it was to Ian earlier this week, where sectors 2 and 3 at Oren are pretty analogous to the entirety of Mid Ohio, and like Pete said, there's a lot of undulation, a lot of elevation changes, which is really ironic considering that it's in Ohio. I'm pretty sure those are the only hills we have are at that track. Um, but yeah, you know, you're taking a lot of turns where the car the corners are off camber, so the car is unloaded as you feel like you're falling off a cliff, similar to what I think is turn 4 at Sonoma. Um, yeah, very similar to that. But the corners are a lot of fun because there's a lot of battling that can be had, you know, 2 wide, even 3 wide through some of these corners in a car the size of the Skippy. There's room for it. There's grip for it in some of these corners. And you'll see these battles that will get drawn out. You know, not just, they don't get settled in one corner or even 2 corners. It can take, you know, a third of a lap or half a lap to really settle things. And it's fun to drive that. It's certainly fun to watch it. So it's a difficult track to learn. I think anybody who hasn't spent time there yet definitely has their work cut out for them. But it's what I call a teaching track. There's a lot to take away from it. Oran Park taught me a ton, as did Olton, as did Mid Ohio. So it's a track that is definitely worth putting the time into.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I'd say that I still remember my first trip through Mid Ohio because it was the first time I ever met Lando Norris on the iRacing circuit, and it was the first time I ever swore out loud while I was trying to race. Because you know, I remember distinctly trying to send it up on him in T5, and he just handed me my lunch all the way through until T13. But it's just an epic battle track.
Which is, yeah, it's awesome. Just like that, you'll be 2 wide for corner after corner after corner. It's really hard to shake somebody who really knows the track. So it's worth really knowing the track.
So Jason, are we looking for a win from you for it? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Oh, don't sign me up for that kind of promise.
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I do enjoy that. My first time racing on there was in a Xfinity car on iRacing there in a stock car, and that's a trip. But I 100% agree with what you guys are saying. It's you know, it's just a wide variety of turns, blind. You know, you really have to know the track. It's not one of those ones you can just join in and hope for the best. The especially the back 9 there, as I call it. I don't know what the official term is, but you know, kind of the back half of the course there. It's just it's going to be interesting to watch the battles that happen. I think that SF2 is going to also be well suited for that. By that I mean smaller grid and a very close packing of skill ability. Looking forward to the big grid being there too, but I think this is going to be especially interesting with SF2. So keep your eyes out for that. And that, I think, is going to be it. I just want to point out Steve Dewar checking in last second here. Still ended up with a great P11, but ran out of fuel there, 0.3 gallons short. So welcome to team running on empty / team Ericsson there for Steve Dewar. And great showing overall for him. Another driver who is slowly working his way up the grid, and it's kind of one of those, same with Sammy, like kind of shocking but also not at the same time. You know, it's awesome to see them up there as you see their names higher and higher up the grid, but at the same time you're like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. You know, confused how it didn't happen sooner, because they just are very consistent and patient and clean and very skilled drivers. So just again going to show how great the grid overall is. So at any rate, I think that's all I got for now. We're gonna see you next week, same bat time, same bat station for Mid Ohio. If anybody is interested, and I know of course we always have Pete joining us this season, Ian hoping to make a greater presence. Jason, we really appreciate you joining us this week. I know that that is a treat that we're not gonna just plan on, but if anybody is interested in joining us and chatting with us in the booth, as you can see, it adds great value, and it leads to less of me talking, which I think is an overall boon. I get to run the cameras, which I like. So, that is all I have. Great race. I'm actually going to very much look forward to going back and watching this one because I didn't talk as much, so I don't have to hear my own voice. And the racing was fantastic throughout the field, as was brought up before. Thank you guys all for joining us tonight. You're taking time out of your evening to spend, adding to the broadcast, and I'm sure all the drivers appreciate it as well. So thank you, Jason, Ian, and Pete, along with Mike Bowers and Peter Lee, who joined us earlier. We will see everybody next Sunday, and stay safe, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you around.
Take care, guys.
Good night.